Okay. Hi everybody. I can see our YouTube audience already live and ready for the discussion today. I'm so excited to be welcoming you all to this edition of our BellaNaijaStyle Digital Summit. When we launched the summit in 2020, we actually did think it was going to be a, a one-off event. So that we're able to start a second edition today with an amazing lineup of speakers from Africa and the diaspora. So I welcome you all. We're about to start our panel shortly. Feel free to go through the venue, go to the networking sessions, go to the expo, just so you can get a feel of the venue. We'll wait about 2 minutes to have our speakers all ready, and then we'll start. Hi, Omoyemi, welcome. Hi, Omoyemi, can you hear me? Hi, Omoyemi. Can you hear me? I think the network is really acting up today. Hi, Omoyemi. Are you here? Hi, Omoyemi. Good afternoon. I think we're having a little bit of a network issue, but it will all be sorted out, and then we can go as proceed as planned. Hi, Omoyemi. Can you hear me? I think there's a little bit of a network lag. I'm so sorry. I think there's a network lag.
I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for joining on time. We'll just read out this now. We're trying to contact Simone and we will start. So we'll be reading out the speaker bios while the presentation on the screen. So if you could just turn off your video for a few seconds, and then once we invite you on the stage, you can turn your video back on. Thank you so much. I think Simone is having a few difficulties logging in. Um, so welcome everyone. The first panel for today is Made in Africa, Exploring Africa's potential as a global fashion manufacturing hub. This is a very important conversation that we're going to be having today because I think everyone on this platform can attest to the fact that Africa has reached the level where we should be at the center or a key part of the global fashion manufacturing system. Fashion has evolved generally into a global industry, as we all know. The global fashion sector includes China, India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and the former Soviet Union. However, Africa, which is one in every seven people on the planet, remains on the periphery of the manufacturing sectors. Although Africa continues to face economic and geopolitical and also social challenges, a third of the continent's 1 billion people are now upwardly mobile. And this massive yet fragmented market of 55 independent countries will become a lucrative frontier opportunity as a source of production and a consumer market for fashion. What would it take for Africa to become a key part of the global fashion industry? That is what we're going to be discussing today with our very interesting and very educational in this very educational panel. Um, on the panel with me, we have Omoyemi Akerele. As a lot of us know, Omoyemi is the founder and the executive director of Style House File, a fashion business development agency that primarily focuses on Nigerian and African fashion industry. Omoyemi Akerele is widely regarded as a driving force behind the burgeoning Nigerian fashion industry, a pioneer agency in image consultancy and creative direction within the West African country. Style House works with Nigerian brands on brand positioning and retail strategies. It also helps brands gain essential international exposure through presenting showcases at Imagine in Italy and through Lagos Fashion and Design Week. Like we all know, everybody's a fan of Lagos Fashion Design Week. In 2011, Omoyemi launched Lagos Fashion and Design Week. The show runs a 4-day schedule featuring a select list of talented up and coming designers, fashion entrepreneurs, partnering with the British Fashion Council. The show has been instrumental in raising the profile of the Nigerian fashion industry and has drawn international attention and acclaim from journalists as well as attracted a host of international buyers. Yes, Omoyemi Akerele is on our panel today and we're so happy and glad to have her come to the panel, Omoyemi. Our second speaker today is Simone Cipriani. Simone manages the Ethical Fashion Initiative, a flagship program of the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the United Nations and of the World Trade Organization. In addition, he chairs the Secretariat of the UN Alliance for Sustainable Fashion. Simone has made it his mission to build a more responsible and sustainable fashion industry by transforming it into a vehicle of poverty reduction and of empowerment for women throughout the developing world. The Ethical Fashion Initiative, EFI, is a large supply chain that enables artisans who live in marginalized conditions in Africa, including Burkina Faso, Mali, Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, as well as the Caribbean, Asia, and more, to become regular suppliers of international fashion and lifestyle brand, thus reducing poverty and empowering large numbers of women artisans. Today, Simone's work at the Ethical Fashion Initiative has become a key. Simone, through his work at the Ethical Fashion Initiative, he has become a key spokesperson at the forefront of the global movements for ethical supply chains in the fashion industry. Welcome, Simone. And finally, my name is Mary Edoro. I am the head of content for BellaNaijaStyle. I've been working in fashion and digital media for almost a decade now, and I'm happy to be spearheading this conversation with these two industries. Join me as we discuss in depth about how Africa can become a global fashion manufacturing hub. Okay, hi Omoyemi. Um, Welcome. We'll just go straight to speaking with you. Your video.
Oh, hi, Mary.
Hi, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. We really appreciate your presence. So, right off the bat, I'd like to know from you, an industry leader, what state do you think the African fashion industry is in right now? Is it a great state, or are we still struggling? What are the things that we need to do to be much better?
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hear you? Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, it takes a while to get used to. Hi, Mary. Hello, everyone. My name is Omoyemi Akerele. I work for a company called Star House Files. We're a fashion business development agency based in Lagos, Nigeria, and yeah, with a key focus on providing opportunities for discovering new talent, with a key focus on providing opportunities for capacity building, skills development, showcasing talent, and of course, we're committed to advocacy as well, which is why, as as quiet as I've been this year in terms of talking and all, I couldn't say no to this topic. So yeah, so this is something that I'm really quite passionate about because I believe that it's very key and vital to to the future of fashion, to the future of fashion on the continent and beyond. So just trying to get settled properly with tech and all to make sure I'm ready to do this. So Mary, can you kindly ask me the question again? What was your question?
Sure, sure. Welcome. And, like I said, we're really happy that you took time out of your busy schedule to be here with us today. Simone has joined the conversation. Hello, Simone. You missed the introductions, but welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy to have you. So, what I asked was right off the bat, what state do you think the fashion industry in Africa is in right now? And I'd love to hear from you both, Simone and Moyemi.
I mean, I think, hi Simone. I think for me, fundamentally, the fashion industry in Africa, I think it's still at the cusp of birthing the next phase. Cusp. I use the word cusp because touch it and you miss it. While we've definitely established that there's some sort of diversity and dynamism, I guess, in terms of in terms of culture, historical references, and commercial viability. We find that the fashion and apparel sector on the continent is still met with a certain degree of uncertainty and fascination. For us at Lagos Fashion Week, for the last 10 years, we've celebrated this heritage of craftsmanship, which has been expressed through the work of designers that we've presented, right? But I believe that that I'm talking about, that we should all be mindful about, beyond creativity, our collective task should be to reinforce a joint commitment to shaping fashion's future. And I believe some of the things that we need to start thinking about would be, how do we add value to creativity? How do we build sustainable businesses? How do we create communities of thriving businesses? How do we implement technology to solve some of the key problems we face within the value chain? How do we develop a knowledge sharing and skills acquisition base? How do we equip youth with skills for job and wealth creation? How do we train or sort of create a paradigm shift in the minds of young emerging talents, right? That our natural approach to fashion, which has always been slow, ethically minded, which has always been a part of us, is what is going to take us into the next phase. How do we build on that? It's also important to mention that while there's been a lot of clamor for the international fashion market, and we push that too, don't get me wrong, but it's important to reinforce that it cannot be our only target. When sometimes it's a bit simpler to serve the home market, where both designers and creators can sort of be in sync in terms of what their vision is. But I think at the same time, it's important to reinforce that the international fashion market and the Pan-African fashion market can coexist side by side, and it's important for us for the next phase to ensure that we help position brands for commercial success, not only within Africa but beyond. So how do we create visualize and creating, ensuring that we create an ecosystem where everyone benefits. Currently, if we look at the global north and their approach to either sourcing fashion or creating fashion or all of that, it's almost one-sided. With the people at the top of the pyramid, they're the ones who benefit the most. And it's important that as key stakeholders on the continent, how do we educate ourselves? How do we ensure that our natural approach to creation, which has always been focused, and this is what we preach: community, co-creation, collaboration. How do we ensure that everyone gets a seat at this table and it's not just one-sided? So yeah, I guess I hope, yeah. So I think that's my thought on this. That we're the cusp of birthing the next phase, but we all have to do it together and do it properly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omoyemi. I think you touched on two questions at the same time, which was really, really awesome. Simone, just share the funny while I was preparing this conversation, I read a lot of interviews and I did hear a lot of people say, where one is now. So it's really interesting to hear this other angle from Omoyemi saying, we're getting the attention, but what next? What are we doing with that? How are we utilizing it to make sure that we're able to help our industry? And Simone, I'd really like to hear your own thoughts. How do you think the African fashion industry now is? What do you think? Where do you think we're at? I think you're muted, Simone. We can't hear you. I think you're muted. No. Okay. I think Simone went out for a second. Okay, Simone, we'll just circle back to you. While still on this topic of the state of the fashion industry, you mentioned, us getting that international traction on Miami. And I really see that, with growing concerns on sustainability, the way fashion is being produced, wastefulness, and all of that. I think a lot of designers and a lot of fashion companies are looking for alternative ways of producing their products. And that's why people are Africa once again, because of the way we do our things. Picking up from what you said, how do we retain that attention that we're getting right now from the international space? And also don't miss out on this opportunity and are able to increase our relevance on revenue.
I think this is quite interesting for me, because I realize that, I should emphasize that it's important that we don't get carried away by this attention or this relevance. Definitely, there's a lot of potential. There was a McKinsey report, I think, that was talking about manufacturing in Africa and its potential to increase from maybe about $500 billion to $1 trillion. That's huge, But the conversation should not, or the focus shouldn't really be about that, because I think in our scramble and petition for how this can impact us from an economic angle, we might lose the very essence of what's really, really important now. Of course, this is important. I mean, for me, I think it's important that we do not completely copy or adopt the model of the global north when it comes to apparel manufacturing. And that's because of the way we are in Africa and the way sort of like our communities or, the way we're positioned, because Fashion really, or the textile and apparel industry, when it's functioning properly, can be a vehicle for socioeconomic change. We all know that the value chain has the power to bring communities together, but a lot of time is so shrouded in mystery and transparency when it comes to the seemingly endless community of people who contribute significantly to designing, sourcing, and producing some of these clothes. But that's where we come in on the continent. That's, I think, what makes us different in the sense that we do see these people. I don't think the people behind the scenes are that quiet. They're part of our community. They're part of the people that I think we try to celebrate every now and then. They're part of the people that we think, in some way, shape, or form, we bring to the spotlight so that everyone can see who actually made my clothes. For example, at Star House, we're committed to empowering women and youth through apparel manufacturing by providing them with skills for employability. And beyond that, as fashion leaders or as fashion business development leaders and through Lagos Fashion Week, I think it's been important to us to emphasize and re-emphasize to the brands that I feel like I'm talking to myself. Are you there?
I'm totally here, and then there are a lot of comments via our YouTube because we're also live on YouTube, and a lot of people are
no problem. It's
Yeah.
okay because I know that sometimes I can just go on. So please just feel
No,
free to
I'm
say,
really
okay, next one. But I think this,
so insightful.
But for me, I think it's really important that we emphasize the importance of our own brand manufacturing in Nigeria or any other part of the continent. Not just for the ease of production that this brings, but for the bigger role it can play in reducing our carbon footprint, in skills development, job creation, income generation, which is vital for example, for a country like Nigeria, and I guess most African countries that have a youth population rate which is over half of their population. And if we bring it back home to Nigeria, where our youth unemployment rate is in the double digits, for me, that's how I want us to see or look at textile and apparel industry. That's how I want us to look at manufacturing. So it's important that we don't get carried away by the attention, because if we get carried away by the attention, the relevance of this $1 trillion opportunity we're chasing, we're going to get it wrong. And it's only a matter of time, that this chase to the bottom approach that's so common and popular in the global north starts to creep into the essence of what we're trying to do. And we have another Rana Plaza on our case. So I hope this answers your question, that for me, yes, it's interesting to see, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's important that more than ever before, this is the time where we need to ensure that we build. This is the time we ensure that we need to come together to make sure that we're laying the right foundation when it comes to manufacturing in Africa. I don't know anything about garment manufacturing or apparel manufacturing. I always tell people, I know nothing. I know, a lot of people that we reached out to at the beginning, how can you support us? How can you help us? Because we were pretty much tired of, creators in our ecosystem looking for where to produce and how to produce. And across the continent, you have tax-free, tax-free havens where people set up huge, large, apparel manufacturing companies that's beneficial to brands that are not African. I got tired of speaking to brands or creators in Kenya or even Ghana, where some of these facilities are placed, and they don't even have access to some of that. So yes, while it's earning revenue for maybe the government, or maybe not, maybe it's earning revenue for the people who produce there, who've set it up in duty-free, zones like that. You realize that our people who are the creators do not have access to facilities where they can manufacture, where they can produce in small enough quantities. So it just, these are some of the things that even more important to me beyond, oh wow, seeing the bigger picture in terms of how this can be a source of incredible revenue for Nigeria's economy or Africa, the wider population economy, if we can bring manufacturing closer to home. So how do we create that balance, between, yes, we want to sort of tap into the manufacturing, as a source of, as a source of income for Nigeria, so a source of foreign exchange revenue, to earn foreign exchange for the government or the countries. but how do we ensure that through the process, the ethical supply chain, our ethical supply chain is protected? How do we ensure that, from source right to the final product, we can see the, we can see the link, we can see the connection. What I would thoroughly hate, for example, would be to have a facility like this in Nigeria and all the fabric, for example, is imported into Nigeria. It wouldn't really make sense. We've done quite a bit of work with some of the manufacturing companies in Nigeria and gone to trade shows with them, where one or two got, order requests from like an Adidas, for example. But then when the conversation starts happening around, turnaround time for delivery, when conversation starts going into, where are you going to source fabrics from? Are you going to be importing the fabrics into Nigeria? You produce in Nigeria and then you put everything back on a ship to, take it back out of the country. Then it doesn't make sense, So for me, the most important thing is how do we create some sort of end-to-end sourcing, from sourcing to manufacturing, to localize, not just localize production, but to localize sourcing, because I think that's it's in that place that we can create more value. There can be more revenue sharing. There can be more value created across our entire value chain, right from agriculture to the final people wearing the clothes. So Mary, I keep telling you that I can go on and on. So
No, I
every
was
now and
just
then you
about
need to
to,
just
yeah, yes. I was just about to jump in to say, I completely agree in terms of protection of what we do, because I think sometimes we don't realize that I like to think of it as such a sacred process, given that a lot of our production process, local artisans, their hand-woven products, is such a cultural process. I would really like to hear from you. I know you work a lot with local artisans, and you are really at the core, at the root of things. The industry, our production industry, our fashion production industry, skew more to local artisans, and but now we're talking of getting all the attention, tapping into the $1 trillion market. But how are we gonna make sure slow fashion always can become fast fashion? Once you need it in a bulk, once you need a lot of products, next thing they start adding harmful chemical dyes or adding harmful products, or just really watering down the process of production of these our local textiles. So do you think, Simone, that our local textiles may lose their authenticity when the industry is being, when it's being industrialized, when we need more products, when our industry becomes more global? Simone?
think he put a note. There's a note here saying his
Yeah.
device is not connecting to the system. So do you want to wait for him for a
Okay.
bit?
Well, I think we can definitely go. It's kind of at the end of the conversation of the questions that you asked, saying how do we protect the industry such that the end to end production to sourcing and all of that is made to be system, and we're not shooting ourselves in the foot when we're working with international platforms, if I heard you correctly.
Um, I think for me, right, the key focus should be how do we combine specialization, because whether or not we like it, the work that our artisans do, it's a specialized process.
Yeah.
How do we combine that specialization with the that's required, right, to sort of create the scalability or the growth that we want to see in a way that's not detrimental to our craft, right?
Exactly.
I think that's the most important thing. For me, the question should be, even though they say productivity gains comes through this process of specialization and mechanization, but how do we sort of dial back a bit to ensure that we create the balance that's required to ensure that what makes fashion in Africa distinct, which are things like, craftsmanship, valuable resources, embroidery, hand embellishment, and so many other things that are, so many other techniques so many other techniques that are truly special because they've been touched by hand. How do we ensure that we
Yeah.
still keep that, keep that in the process? And, I'm going to ask you a question. It's very important that, this is something, and that's why I keep saying the questions that's more important to me that we need to answer is more than, oh, how do we remain relevant? The question would be, how do we create the balance that we need? How can we preserve the essence of what makes African fashion special? I mean,
Yeah.
automated machines, I mean, we're so behind when it comes to manufacturing,
Exactly.
at least in Nigeria, because everything is automated and
Yeah.
we're still running a manual process, working with people and humans. Don't get me wrong, it's something that I really cherish, because it's a sort of job creation. But at the same time, eventually we're going to move the conversation from teaching people manual skills like garment machining skills or pattern cutting to more technology. How do you use
Yeah.
AI? How do you use all those type of things to ensure that you scale up the process, but at the right pace. At the right pace. So how do we balance the designer's need, for scalability without upsetting this fragile ecosystem that we've created that's people dependent, and I think therein lies the frustration because quite a few of these brands, of course, you want them to get into as many stores as possible. But
Yeah.
maybe African fashion in that looking at African fashion in that way, maybe that's not what it's meant to be. Maybe it's always
Mhm.
we're supposed to start thinking of it more as this, to a certain extent, like this demi couture sort of approach,
Exactly. That's
for
just what I
some
was
of
saying.
for some of for the
Yeah.
very essence of what we call, and as much as I hate the term African fashion, sorry, but maybe that's the sort of approach we need to think of, when it comes to certain things, and
I definitely
which brings
agree.
me, yeah, and which brings me to something that's really important. Maybe instead of thinking mass production, we should be thinking mass customization. So yes, maybe if we think about fashion, right? So maybe mass produce the baseline, which is mostly all the time always dress or certain things like that. But the hand embellishments and all of that, maybe that's where mass customization comes in. Maybe our tech industry, our tech leaders and our innovators, our own Silicon Valley, maybe they need to be thinking of solutions for us, maybe some mass
I
customization
very much
software.
agree. I very much
Yeah,
agree, and I would have really loved for Simi to give us more insight since he works with core artisans and he's been doing this for a while because it's been something I've been like, fabrics are so like the production process is not it's slow fashion. It's not even there's no I don't know if it's going to be able to transition like you said without losing the value of what it is. But while we wait for Simone, I move over to terrains that are more familiar to you, like investment in the sector and all of that. I remember watching an interview with you, I think, was it last year? You spoke with Samantha of green red carpet dress. And I remember you said something saying it's not just about making profits in the industry, it's about that every hand is being fed. So that because I think I what I translated to mean was the whole ecosystem because sometimes these local artisans they are quite local so they don't get as much as they should be getting but I'm not sure that's how I translated it but can you please shed more light on that?
um, hmm. So what's your question again? You want to find out about?
Yeah, what so I feel like in manufacturing process in the
Hmm.
production process these local artisans sometimes might be exploited in terms
Okay.
of playing with the bigger leagues and all of I feel because when I heard that statement saying not just we're making profits but all hands should be fed, that's just what he brought my mind to like oh, okay you can have some people producing because they're producing all the way in Kabar they're earning way less than if they were in Lagos for example producing and having their craft there so that I'm translating if I'm correct.
Okay, I think what I was trying to say in that, as you were saying this, I was like, okay, what were you trying to say? Anyways, sorry. But I think what I was trying to say is the fact that if we think about African communities and we think about maybe generations before us, if we think about fashion and what it's been like, we've been even before the global north started talking about sustainability, secular fashion, and all these things, I think we've always been deeply rooted in that practice where there's concern, within the community. If we think about, the even the way we lived, where it was always been communal, where families were communal, a communal way of life, of eating, of sharing, that's who we are naturally as Africans. And, I think what I was trying to say there is that, with this community approach to creation, there's a belief that everyone matters. There's a belief that everything matters, and if every hand's work, every hand should benefit, because that's the way, that's the way things have always been, in terms of sharing, in terms of community building and all of that, as opposed to what exists today, either within the ethical supply chain, not ethical, within supply chain management across the world, where only the people at the top of the pyramid benefit. But when we think, dial it back a bit and look at maybe from even the farmers, let's look at, the apparel garment manufacturers, the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, and you start to think of you start to calculate how much they earn versus the top three or four wealthiest people in the world, right? Are sort of like key players within the value chain. If you understand what I mean, they're like your LVMH or your Zara Inditex Group or Amazon, those type of people. So if there's so much, if fashion or the textile and apparel industry can create like a global, can put the top three wealthiest people at the top of the list. And then why is there still so much poverty in the world, when you think about the people who make the clothes? So there needs to be a bit more, I don't know, balance, so to speak, in terms of, this whole profit sharing formula, and how things work. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's easy, because I know that supply chain management has become increasingly complex, across the world. But the question we also need to be asking ourselves as consumers, we all have a role to play, because if we're buying, if you're buying clothes at a particular price point, you have to think about, you're buying it at 3,000 naira. You have to think about the people who made it. So how much did they get paid? 10 naira or 5 naira? That's how it works. And, increasingly, that's what we're beginning to think as well, in the facility that we're producing, because paying salaries is such a chore, and if you set up a vehicle for the purpose of empowering people, and you're still struggling to pay salaries of how many people you have, because you keep trying to explain to the brands you produce for that you cannot produce at below a certain amount of money, so that's how it is. So you cannot expect to sell something at 200,000, but then again, the people who are producing it, you want to pay them 100 naira for producing each item. So that's the same way it is. Because if you're paying 100 naira to produce that garment, invariably means that at the end of the month, to be able to pay those people their salaries, where they're also going to be struggling. Which is why I keep saying we must be important. We must really try, so we don't adopt the model of the international, what's happening. I keep saying global north, or what's happening in the global north, and that's why we always talk about the importance of, I don't know, maybe carrying everyone along and just being mindful. I guess it's a mindfulness to be able to tell, the people you produce for, that, listen, we have to charge you X amount of money because we have to pay our salaries of our staff. And the reason, this is why you have to pay, a certain percentage ahead of time, so we can pay them. So it sounds like a simplistic approach for us because we're so small. So I understand that the more complex some of these companies and manufacturing companies get, the more difficult it is to be able to enforce some of these things. But I think that's what I was trying to say. Bring it from the community of of who we are as Africans. Everyone matters. We eat together, we create together, we eat together, we live together. It's that approach to bring it into our consciousness. As we produce, as we run our factories, all of that. So people are more likely to buy into a model like that than any other thing. And which is also the same thing when we're talking about craftsmanship and artisans, that, instead of thinking about scalability in that sense, we just have to create craft villages across Nigeria that can employ people. preserve the the sort of craft that we need to keep those people, to keep them gainfully employed, so we do not lose the craft. There's got to be skills exchange, but in all of that, it's important that we also, either as consumers or as stakeholders, we're not just celebrating the designers who rely on the craft, but we're mindful to remember the people, in those craft villages as well, who have contributed significantly to designing, to co-creating, and who are an integral part of the process, so to speak.
Thank you so much, Omoyemi, and thanks to our YouTube. The live stream is really going crazy. Please ask your just put your questions together, and we'll take questions soon. And also to our hopping guests, you can put your questions in the Q&A, and then we'll take them towards the end of the conversation. Thank you all for being a part of this. This is going really, really well, and so I can't wait to go back and actually watch this whole video again and digest every nugget Omoyemi has really shared with us. So now let's go into investment proper. Now, there's so much interest in the African fashion industry, and it still remains challenging to obtain finance, especially for local businesses that need growth capital. Omoyemi, why do you think, in your opinion, institutions are not so eager, are reluctant to invest in the industry? And what can we do to promote local and foreign investment in the textile industry in Africa? Omoyemi, okay.
Sorry, I think fundamentally, a lot of people think the textile and apparel industries are getting cash out quick. But it's not, it's unfortunately, it's not a invest in 2 3 years, take your money out, and then you're on to the next. It's something that needs to be carefully nurtured. And I think I find that when most people want to invest in Nigeria or Africa, they're looking for, I might be wrong, I want to be wrong, and not just on the continent, I think globally, right? If we look at the model, it's long term. Textile and apparel industry is not a getting quick and cash out kind of place. It's you have to invest your time, energy, and there's so much more that goes into it. It's complex, I have to say. So I think, for me, there are quite a number of factors. Number one, it's long term. You need long term investment. You need patience capital. You need, think about instability. I mean, let's even talk about foreign exchange devaluation. That's a constant part of our economy, especially in Nigeria. Think about inflation. There's so much more that can be a deterrent to investors. Lack of access to data. It's ridiculous that you can't really find information that you need to even to even ask for a loan, not to talk of approach investors. So I think a different approach. You might probably need to think of a different approach when it comes to fashion, and quite a few people are already thinking about it. Maybe it might not necessarily be your P firm approach, that natural, you get private equity investment into the industry to make it, it might have to be a combination of different models. So, which goes back to what I always say. So we're not just adopting what works in the global north, what works in the west, and bringing it here and think that, okay, that's the solution. Maybe it's a different approach. Maybe it has to be, angel investors who just believe in this, believe in the sector, and they're willing to invest. Don't get me wrong. Like, of course, there's a role that the government needs to play. And I find, something's happened recently that I realized that, we often hear in papers that maybe governments, invested a certain amount in the textile and apparel industry. And we're often quick to think, oh, no, it doesn't, maybe it's not real. But recently, Nigeria Export Promotion Council, through launched a grant called the EEFP grant, which is supposed to support, not just fashion, textile, apparel, beauty, and most of the things that's exported. And listening in terms of applications and the people who applied, you find out that a lot of people don't apply for things like that. That's a question I can never answer. So you're not applying for the grant, but it's out there. They say they don't hear about it. but there are people who've made it their duty to know whenever the government is disbursing grants and who benefits from these grants. So people often say, oh no, maybe the grants are not real. People say that it doesn't exist. It does exist. People access them. But it just seems I always call, I
Yeah.
think the social media entrepreneurs don't really know about these grants, or they don't think it's important, or they're not, they think it's a hoax. They don't apply,
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's the
So
major thing. People always think, they already have the people they're gonna pick, they already have the people they're gonna work with.
but
But
it's
wow,
not
this is interesting.
it's not true, because I've always thought
Mm,
that as well, that yeah, here we go again. But then you realize people don't apply. People don't do a lot of
mm,
things they're supposed to do. So how else do you want to be able to access, funding for your business? So yes, there's yes to traditional lending from banks, but we've always known that that's always been tough because not everyone is able to access. And if you're able to access through some of the, I think they have the revolving facilities for, I think, up to 10 million for younger people, not younger people, but that can help, with your business. So you have to make it your duty or your business to read the papers, to find how you can get alternate source of funding to be able to support your business. And so there's so many opportunities out there now. But when we talk about, investment in the way that you're talking about now, I find that there's quite a bit of reluctance, even though some people have, maybe Roberta through African Fashion Foundation. I think she launched a grant like 2 3 years
yes,
ago, which the model is meant to probably be, I think, P, but I'm not sure, what it is. I'm sure she's here today, so she'll probably be able to
yes,
shed more light on that. There's a new firm as well that's come up, recently to, they're saying they have a different approach. And, so it's exciting times, I guess, to be able to see how there's also Heather Fund. I'm not sure if West African designers have access to that now. It was mostly sort of like East African brands. So in the absence of, but these opportunities are probably for like designers, but the sort of opportunity like, like a manufacturing investment, sorry, that manufacturing companies and textile companies need, that's something, a different conversation. But yeah, look, there was even a story recently about the Made in Africa group and Blisco. Made in Africa was going
oh,
to
yes, I
acquire,
saw that. Yes,
and that just fell out. So there's so many questions that are still a bit unanswered in terms of what happened. They had the money or they didn't have the money. Okay,
mm-hmm.
the Dutch people didn't want to sell to Africans. There's so many conspiracy theories out there in terms of what happened. But I think the future, that's why it's important for us to build our own sort of like businesses, but in the process of building as well, hopefully be able to ensure that there's enough data out there that can help, support enough data out there that can help support either applications or loan, in putting together your bid or to make yourself attractive to an investor. But we're still, we're not there yet, I think. So if we're looking at what's
Yeah.
happening in the tech space and all the funding that's coming in, I don't think we're there yet because with this, it's long term, it's volatile, it's dependent on foreign exchange fluctuation or devaluation, which happens a lot. It's even subject to change in governance, because there's so many things, and for as long as we have that uncertainty in, around how fashion is marketed, how it's consumed, how it's produced within the continent, it's always going to be a tricky space for investors to come in. But technology has
Do
been
you
able
think
to. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you like the way the tech industry has been able to, they've reached that point where, there's so much investment coming into the industry. Do you think it's because there isn't sort of like a united front for the fashion industry? So there's so many factions, so many different factions. So there's no kind of like a united front. Do you think so?
I mean, definitely that would go a long way. Having a unified, coming together as a as one entity to be able to advocate for things like that. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the only reason. I don't think so. I think that would be a bit simplistic, so to speak. Is the fact that to be able to put that kind of money in a brand, you need to understand the business. A lot of these investors don't understand fashion, especially how it operates on the continent. A lot of people have a one-size-fits-all approach to how fashion should be, what it should look like, how it should be consumed. And it's so much deeper than that, So you need a lot of patience capital, you need a lot of patience, you need a lot of understanding. And of course, unity goes a long way so that you can advocate. But when I'm even, thinking about, and of course, a lot of transparency. Recently, about 5-6 years ago, there was a mapping of the sector, I think by British Council. And, they reached out to quite a lot of people to fill out, to do a survey. What you find is that a lot of brands are reluctant. They're reluctant to do this. You know why? They don't want the information out there. They don't want, information about their company. They don't want, are you asking? There's facts now. Are you joking? A lot of people didn't fill it out. So you have an incomplete mapping as far as I'm concerned, because you don't get a true picture of the size of the industry. You don't get a true picture. So half the time when all these, Euromonitor and co are talking about, the African fashion industry is worth $30 billion, I giggle because, I wonder where that data is coming from, because people are not, really putting themselves or their brands out there to say, this is who I am. And that's where we need to be more mindful as stakeholders, to tell ourselves that it's okay. I think AFDB did one recently, fill out those forms, talk about your business, tell us the size, how much you earn a year, how much, and I don't know why we don't do it. Maybe we're just not used to it. Maybe people don't want to put their business out there. They want people to know how much they're really making. But these are all of the things that's important, to be able to make things, investment friendly. It's sort of like, how can you, anyways.
I think also, like you said, it's lack of information where people are not seeing or saying, oh, I benefited from this, and so they're not inspired, or they're afraid that, oh, it's not really as they're advertising it to be. So like that lack of information where, I just think because it's crazy to me that, oh, okay, this is just something you can feel and then you can benefit, but nobody's feeling that. Just seems so regressive to me. But thank you so much. This is really very very enlightening, because the other I used to also be among the people who say, oh, when you see these type of things where they say apply to get a grant, I'm like, there are people
Apply.
there.
You know why people don't? You know why they don't apply? Maybe the question says upload your tax clearance certificate. And come on, just a lot of people don't have those things. I think you have to be bold. Just apply. Just apply, because some people are applying. So you think about last year, right? With the pandemic, most brands across the world were able to access funding either through banks or through different initiatives, either government or, I don't know, across the world. So if, either think, and if you think about, and pardon me, I know this is meant to be Pan-African, but if you're able to even think about the opportunities that, LSETF had a grant they were giving out. At some point, the Nigerian government said, oh, if you pay salaries for your workers, fill out this form. People got those grants. Mary, they got them.
Wow.
It's interesting because at some point, even I was doubting, like, really, are these things real? They are real. They're real. But you need to be, so I find that, a lot of our young people and a lot of creators are probably, social media entrepreneurs. I'm so sorry. I'm not, no disrespect. What I'm trying to say is, while social media is great, some of these governments, a lot of these things are in the newspapers, a lot of these things are, and I know, because sometimes even I criticize that approach that you have to take information to where the people are. So if they're on social media, you have to take it there, but somehow we missed out on a lot of opportunities as well at SHS. Like, I'm like, wow, how did we not see this? Because you were not following the right people. how did you miss it? Well, a lot of other people saw it, so you cannot say that you didn't see it, So you have to just be able to ensure that you have access to some of these things. And, and I guess that's where community, what you were talking about, unity comes in. Because if you have like a group, for dissemination of information, it makes things a little bit easier. But even then, it still doesn't mean that people are going to apply. But yes to type P as a solution out of this. But I think people with a deeper understanding of the complexities of how to navigate, navigate the African business systems would be able to do that better. And of course, I think another approach would be to set up accelerators that can, help equip businesses with the skills they need. And at the end of the day, sort of be able to connect them to sort of the right investment that they need at that particular point. So this is all theoretical, by the way, Mary.
I think we have a lot of people tuned into this conversation, and it's just left for someone to say, okay, you know what, I can do this. And for me, I wish Simone was here. EFI has this accelerator, which they do. Lagos Fashion Week is doing so much already, which another conversation for another day. I believe is so much work for Nigeria and for Africa. So someone asked on our YouTube stream saying, "Oh, where can we access these grants?" Where it's just like you said, put your ears to the. But I mean, Omoyemi, if you have some to share, please go ahead and share. But the truth is, nobody's gonna help. You have to help yourself in the end. And like you said, just go out, just do it, just apply, just do it, because you don't know where you can actually get something from. So I think that's very important.
I think
We're almost sure.
Are we done?
We're actually almost running out of time. We have some. For me, just to round up the conversation, I just want to know, what does success look like for the African fashion industry? What do you think? What is that place that we need to get to? I mean, that we're like, okay, we've done well, we've done great for ourselves.
I'm always going to tie this back to that thing you said, where everyone matters and everyone benefits. Because I really, 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 really do believe that the textile and apparel industry has the potential to lift a lot of people from poverty, right? So no, I'm not going to say, getting into fancy stores, or for me, it's always going to be. I think when we get to a place when we've created a lot of thriving and sustainable fashion businesses, who build those businesses in a way, right, that creates a trickle down effect that's beneficial, that creates so much benefit across the value chain. So beyond creativity, how does it empower people? How does it create jobs? How does it create wealth, for other people in communities? How do we create, that sort of because I believe that if the designers thrive, right, and the artisans don't thrive, we might as well, it's only a matter of time before the system stops working. So I think success for me lies in a future where, you said it, every hand must benefit, and every hand, everyone matters, and every hand must benefit. And of course, beyond that, I think the future lies in us being able to innovate our way out of this. The textile and apparel, textile and apparel industry is really very peculiar. And I'm not quite sure a one-size-fits-all approach will work for us. And, merely adopting what's happening in the global north is the solution. So how do we all put our thinking caps together to be able to create lasting solutions using technology to ensure that, not only the big players get to benefit from it, but even the everyday person who wants to produce 10, 15, 100 units or 150 units, how do we all ensure that we can, and at the end of the day, create and operate a system that's mindful of the environment, that's mindful of the people, that's mindful of, ensuring that we reduce waste, we reduce our carbon footprint, and at the same time, create businesses that can be profitable. And profit doesn't necessarily have to mean cutthroat profit. Doesn't necessarily always have to be a race to the bottom approach. It's one that one is beneficial to all. So I think without going on and on and on in circles, I think that's my answer.
Muted. Thanks so much, Omoyemi. Let me just take two questions from the audience and then we can start. Someone says, does a fashion okay, this is a Lagos Fashion Week question, although the panel is not about Lagos Fashion Week, I'm so sorry. Does a fashion brand need to fully produce in Africa to showcase at Lagos Fashion Week? And what are other requirements for participating?
Oh no, sorry. I know I said that at the beginning. It's not, you don't compulsorily have to put. However, that's our preference, right? That's what we encourage. That's what we preach, and that's what we'd like to see.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm completely on board. And someone says, what are some organizations that are supporting the manufacturing industry? I think this would have been a perfect question for Simone, but we can definitely, Omoyemi, if you have any answers for that.
So, supporting the manufacturing industry in
Yes,
Africa. What do you
in
mean?
Africa, yes, in Africa, some
So is the
organizations that are,
person so the person speaking, is the person a manufacturer so that I know how to answer the question, or is the person
I
looking
believe
for
so.
manufacturing? Okay. Oh yeah. As a manufacturer, I think I would localize this as well. There are different agencies. There's GIZ. There's DFID as well that's committed to sort of supporting, manufacturers on that scale. The organizations like UNIDO, the organizations like EU as well. That's giving grants. Although I find that a lot of times most donor agencies don't particularly have Nigeria on their list for obvious reasons, because y'all are always rolling in your PJs and things. They don't really think we need money. But I think there's still some, donor agencies across the world that would provide opportunities for manufacturing companies to be able to access funding. But you sort of have to know either, reach out to them, connect to them to be able to find out what they're doing. And for the longest time, I think, and within the government, there's Nexim Bank, there's Afrexim, there's AFDB, Nigeria Export Promotion Council does a lot as well. So these are all yeah.
Thank you so much, Omoyemi. This has been super, super insightful. About ready to start the second panel, but I'm so grateful about how has been. We have so much great feedback from YouTube. Thank you so much for joining in and for your insight that you have shared with us. Thank you so much.
Thank
We really
you.
appreciate
Bye.
it. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Thanks to everyone who has joined this conversation. You can head over to the second conversation now, the second panel. The link has been posted in the chat box, so you can just head over there now. We're about to start tackling waste and building a sustainable fashion future. We'll start shortly by 3 p.m. WAT. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. See you at the next destination.